Warning: the story you are about to hear is real. I urge you to listen until the very end, because the truth is far more terrifying than fiction. If you want to hear more real horror stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and stay with us. You don't want to face the darkness alone. Now, listen closely. They say that if you hear your name called in the deep woods, you should never look back. You should never answer, because the moment you acknowledge it, you give it permission to see you. You give it permission to follow you. My name is Elias, and what I am about to share with you is not a ghost story. Ghosts are the spirits of the dead, harmless memories trapped in time. What I encountered in the dense, suffocating forests of West Virginia was never human. It was something ancient, something that knows how to sound like us, but doesn't know how to be us. It started when I inherited my Uncle Miller's cabin. It was located in a place the locals call Blackwood Ridge, miles away from the nearest paved road or cell tower. Uncle Miller had died of a heart attack 2 months prior. He was found in his basement, clutching a shotgun. The police ruled it natural causes, mostly because there were no signs of forced entry. The doors were locked from the inside. I drove up there in late October to clean the place out and prepare it for sale. The drive was beautiful at first, leaves turning bright orange and blood red, the air crisp and cold. But as soon as I turned onto the gravel road leading up the mountain, the atmosphere shifted. The birds stopped singing. The forest became unnaturally quiet, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The cabin was a sturdy, 2-story wooden structure that looked like it had grown out of the earth. But when I unlocked the front door, it smelled of mildew and something else, something metallic, like old copper pennies or dried blood. The first night was uneventful, but sleep was impossible. The silence out there is heavy. It presses against your ears until you hear a ringing sound. Around 2 a.m., I heard it for the first time. It was a whistle, a simple 3-note tune coming from the tree line. It sounded cheerful, almost playful, which made it terrifying in the middle of the pitch-black woods. I told myself it was just the wind, or maybe a strange bird, but deep down, my primitive brain, the part of us that remembers when humans were prey, knew better. The next day, I found Uncle Miller's journal tucked under his mattress. The entries were normal at the beginning. He wrote about fishing in the creek, fixing the roof, and the changing weather. But the last 3 weeks of entries were erratic. The handwriting became shaky and jagged. He wrote, "It sounds like my wife. It sounds exactly like Sarah, but Sarah has been dead for 10 years. A few pages later, the writing became even desperate. It's learning. It's getting closer to the house. It knows I'm alone out here. It taps on the windows at night, but when I look, nothing is there, just the dark woods staring back." The final entry, written the day he died, was just one sentence scrawled in heavy black ink: "Do not let it in." That second night, a heavy storm rolled in. The rain was hammering against the tin roof like bullets. I was in the living room trying to read by the light of a single lamp when I froze. From the front porch, clear as day, I heard a voice. It said, "Elias, are you in there? It's freezing out here. Please let me in." My blood turned to ice in my veins. The voice wasn't a stranger's. It was my brother's voice. My brother, David, who lives in California, 3,000 miles away. I stood up, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I walked to the door, my hand trembling. For a split second, I almost unlocked it. It sounded so real, so desperate and cold. "Elias, please, I'm hurt. Open the door," the voice pleaded. I looked through the peephole. The porch light was flickering, buzzing against the rain. Standing there in the pouring rain was a figure. It was wearing clothes that looked like my brother's, a blue hoodie and jeans. It had his height, his build, his hair, but it wasn't facing the door. It was facing the woods with its back to me. Yet the voice was coming from it clearly. "Elias, open the door," it said again, but the tone was flat now, devoid of emotion. I backed away, grabbing the heavy iron fireplace poker. "Who are you?" I shouted through the wood. The figure didn't turn around, but its neck snapped backward with a sickening crunch, rotating 180 degrees so its face was looking right at the peephole. It wasn't my brother. The face was smooth like wet clay, no eyes, no nose, just a mouth that was stretched too wide, mimicking the movements of speech. It smiled, revealing too many teeth. Then it let out a sound that wasn't human, a high-pitched screech that shattered the light bulb on the porch. The power to the cabin cut out, plunging me into absolute darkness. I was standing in total darkness. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning outside, illuminating the room in brief, terrifying bursts. I scrambled for my flashlight, my hands shaking so badly I dropped it twice on the hardwood floor. When I finally clicked it on, the beam cut through the dusty air of the cabin. The screeching had stopped. The silence returned. But it was different now. It was the silence of a predator waiting for its prey to move. I knew I couldn't stay in the living room. It was too exposed. There were windows everywhere. I remembered that Uncle Miller's body was found in the basement. He had retreated there for a reason. It had the only reinforced steel door in the house. I moved slowly toward the kitchen, heading for the basement stairs. Every floorboard that creaked under my boots sounded like a gunshot in the quiet house. Then I heard it. Not on the porch anymore. It was on the roof. Thump, drag, thump, drag. It was heavy. It was testing for a way in. It was looking for a chimney, a vent, or a loose shingle. I reached the basement door, threw it open, and ran down the wooden stairs, locking the heavy deadbolt behind me. The basement was cold, filled with old tools, cardboard boxes, and the smell of damp earth. I pushed a heavy metal shelf against the door to barricade it further. I sat there in the dark, clutching the flashlight, listening to the rain and my own breathing. For an hour, nothing happened. I began to hope that maybe it had given up. Then the voice returned, but it wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was coming from the ventilation vent in the corner of the basement ceiling. "Elias, why are you hiding? Uncle Miller hid too. He tasted like fear." The voice changed. It shifted from my brother's voice to a little girl's voice, then to an old man's voice. It was cycling through people it had heard before. It was practicing. It was taunting me. Then the doorknob at the top of the stairs rattled violently. It wasn't a gentle rattle. The whole door frame shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. It was trying to break the door down. I saw the wood splintering around the lock. It was incredibly strong. I looked around frantically for a weapon, anything better than a flashlight. I saw a tarp covering something in the corner. I pulled it back. It was Uncle Miller's real journal, not the one upstairs, and next to it, a map. The map showed an old coal mining tunnel that ran beneath the property. The entrance was right here, in the basement, behind the old furnace. The door upstairs gave a loud crack. A long, pale hand with too many joints reached through the splintered wood, feeling for the lock. I didn't have a choice. I pushed the old rusted furnace aside with all my strength. Behind it was a small, rot-infested hole leading into the earth, the mine shaft. I squeezed my body into the hole just as the basement door exploded inward. I crawled. The tunnel was tight, smelling of gas and decay. Behind me, I heard it drop into the basement. It let out a sound I will never forget, a sound like a crying baby mixed with a growling bear. It was smelling my scent. It was coming into the tunnel. I crawled on my hands and knees for what felt like miles. My knees were bleeding. My flashlight was dying, the light turning yellow and dim. Finally, I felt a breeze, fresh air. I scrambled out of the exit, tumbling down a wet hillside. I was back in the woods, about 100 yards from my car. The rain had stopped. The moon was out, casting long shadows through the trees. I sprinted. I didn't care about the noise anymore. I ran toward my car like my life depended on it, because it did. I fumbled with my keys. I dropped them in the mud. Elias. The whisper was right behind my ear. I grabbed the keys, jammed them into the door, and threw myself inside, just as a pale hand slapped against the driver's side window. I started the engine and floored it. The tires spun in the mud before catching grip. As I sped away, I looked in the rearview mirror. It was standing in the middle of the road. It wasn't chasing me. It was waving. It was waving goodbye, just like a human would. I drove for 4 hours straight until I hit the state line. I stopped at a gas station, shaking, crying. I thought I was safe. I thought I had escaped. But here is why I'm telling you this story. Here is why I'm warning you to never go to Blackwood Ridge. Yesterday, I was back in my apartment in the city. I was editing a video on my computer. I had my headphones on. Suddenly, my phone rang. The caller ID said, "Home." It was calling from my own landline, inside my own apartment. I stared at the phone. My hand shook as I slowly picked it up. On the other end, there was silence for a moment, and then a perfect recording of my own voice speaking back to me. They say if you hear your name called in the woods, never look back. It didn't stay in the woods. It followed me, and now it has my voice.